Welcome to another edition of the Bleed Los Podcast. This week's podcast is presented by our partners at BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, and events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. If you head on over to their website today, which is betonline.ag, and use our promo code, which is BLEAV50, BLEAV50, you will receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Huge thanks to them for presenting this week's episode of the podcast and stopping by the Carne Asada for a few minutes to chop it up about some trade deadline speculation. Friend of the Carne Asada, MLB.com contributor and beat writer for the Los Angeles Dodgers, Juan Toribio. Juan, ¿cómo estás? Muy bien a verte.
Yeah, you guys too. Thanks for having me again. It's been a little while.
It's been a little too long, but you know what? What better time to catch up with you than during trade season, as we refer to it as.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's probably gonna be a busy week. Kind of crazy. It's 5 days away, I think, right? 5 days.
Yeah, it's crazy already that it's already the 1st of August.
Well, not quite there yet, but close.
Close. Well, let's just get into it. There's some guy, some rando that plays outfield for the Washington Nationals that everyone wants. Juan Soto. I am on the record of saying I don't think the Dodgers need him. Obviously, Andrew Friedman has debunked my opinion because of who am I. But I'm just curious. There's a lot of chatter around him. Is the chatter true that you've heard it since you have your ear to the ground? What can you tell us about the Juan Soto sweepstakes?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. The Dodgers don't need Juan Soto. I mean, if you look at their lineup, that's pretty good evidence that they don't need him. But anytime you have a guy who becomes available of that caliber, you kind of just have to go after him, like whether you need him or not. And guys like him don't become available very often, especially a guy 23 years old, probably not even in the prime of his career, kind of in the trajectory of becoming a Hall of Famer one day. When we'll kind of see how that pans out. And he has 2.5 years of control, so you have 3 postseasons of him. So yeah, you're right. They don't need him, but if you just go and play, couch manager or couch GM or whatever, and you just add him into this Dodgers lineup, it's kind of like, why not? If we can get him, you have to go after him regardless of whether a need or not. They have other needs, but when a guy like him, like I said, when a guy like him becomes available, you kind of just have to just kick the tires, and the Dodgers are, and they will until he gets traded or until he doesn't get traded. I think maybe in an ideal world, if they can try and get him in the offseason, price kind of lowers a little bit, but then you also run into the risk of the San Diego Padres go after him and trade for him now, and then you're kind of screwed. You lose him for the next 3 years at least, or maybe forever, right? Because you never know what your books are going to look like in 3 years. You don't know if the Padres or whoever trades for him resigns him. So you run into some of those risks. So when he becomes available, you just kind of have to go after him.
The asking prices that have been reported, they're pretty high. As far as you know, are those asking prices in fact true? Or some of that being embellished, or is there planting there by other parties? As you know, that kind of happens from time to time too.
Right. No, I mean, it's definitely true. I mean, everything I've heard, they're asking for a lot. I mean, I've had a couple people tell me, basically take out 4 of the 5 or 6 top prospects, and then maybe they'll want one more major league ready guy. So, I mean, it's definitely a lot, but that's what you would expect, right? I mean, Mookie Betts wasn't cheap, and they kind of attached David Price to him. I guess Trey Turner was a little bit cheaper because he came with Max Scherzer. But like I said, if you get 3 postseasons of Juan Soto, the price is going to be expensive, and the Nationals don't have to trade him. Right. At some point, they will trade him if they can't resign him. But then right now, if they don't get the prices they want, they can always wait for the offseason or wait to next deadline, and then people are still going to go crazy over him, and someone will pay up. as far as prospects go, I mean, if I was GM, I'm not. I'm trading all of them. I mean, it's just. I mean, I think we just saw. I mean, we saw Josiah Gray and Keibert Ruiz here. I guess yesterday. Both solid players. Josiah Gray's having a pretty good year. Keber's kind of so up and down, and he's gonna be a pretty good player. I think everyone kind of agrees on that. But then you see on the other side, and you see Trey Turner, and you're like, oh, okay, it's worth it because the guy is hitting 320, and he's like one of your best players. He's a perennial all-star now. And then Max Scherzer gave you probably the best second half maybe in franchise history, right? Like, I mean, he was completely dominant. So when you look at it, Donovan Casey, I think I looked it up, is hitting I think he has like a 600 OPS in AAA this year. So, you don't know what you're getting when you talk about prospects. I think that's just kind of my philosophy. Everyone has a different philosophy. Like AJ Preller doesn't care about prospects too much because he just keeps trading them all away. And then Andrew Freeman kind of has a different perspective on those things. So it just depends on the team. But it's just kind of interesting. I mean, you just never know what you're going to get from these guys until they are actually in the big leagues. Mackenzie Gore, I think you saw Max Meyer from the Marlins. He needs Tommy John. And that's a very realistic possibility when it comes to a lot of these pitchers. So if it was up to me, I would just, if you want five prospects for Juan Soto, having him in this lineup for 3 years, I think I'd probably do that.
Well, and I mean, let's be realistic too. If there is a farm that can afford it, it's the Dodgers, right? Because I mean, even their top 10, their bottom half top 10 is the top end of anybody else's farm. So if we're calling a spade, if there's a team that can splurge on that, and I've said it too. I've said it to these guys in our group text, and Babyface, who's not on right now, thinks I'm crazy. I still think they're going to trade the homie Diego Cartaya. There's reasons why the Dodgers are doing certain things, right? And for me, if the Nationals call and they say we want Cartaya, we want Miguel Vargas, maybe Bobby Miller or Ryan Pepio, and I mean, I don't know who the other major leaguer they might ask for, but I mean, I know they want a low service time guy. For Juan Soto, it's hard, right? It's hard to say no to that because, like you said, you get 3 postseasons of Juan Soto no matter what. Even if you don't extend him, you get 3 seasons of Juan Soto. So for me, like you said, it makes a lot of logical sense. But to the little brother to the south, the San Diego Padres, I actually wanted to ask you about them. Like you said, AJ Preller does not subscribe to the idea of asset hoarding like Andrew Friedman. It's reported that they may consider moving on from Blake Snell for luxury tax purposes, which I find interesting because if in order to avoid some of that stuff, obviously you look at future salaries, all that jazz. But they're dealing with some injuries too, right? Joe Musgrove is up. Sean Manaea is going to be up, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, they're out. I'm sorry, Mike Clevenger, wrong guy. My apologies to Mike Clevenger. They could all potentially enter free agency, so they're in an interesting spot. And I know AJ Preller might be feeling a little bit of the heat. So it's interesting to hear now that they've asked about Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, they're going to be in on Juan Soto. Is there any of that should be concerning, to the big brother up north, the Los Angeles Dodgers?
I don't know if concerning is probably the word. I mean, if the Padres get Juan Soto and they get Fernando Tatis Jr. back at some point in August, I mean, that makes them a pretty good team. I mean, right now they just can't hit. You add those 2 guys in there with that rotation and kind of some bullpen pieces are coming back. I mean, they become a really good team. They're also 11 and a half games out of first place right now. So, I think the division, I said it like 2 weeks ago, I think the division is pretty much wrapped up. I just don't see the Dodgers playing 500 ball and then the Padres playing, 800 ball for the rest of the way. So, it's concerning in a postseason. Yeah, of course. I mean, like I said, any team that gets Juan Soto, is going to be that much better. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. You can't walk him if you put him in a real major league lineup. So that becomes another hurdle that the Dodgers have to get through. I think the Mets are really good. I think the Braves are really good. So if you add a 4th team in the National League, that's really good. That makes the path that much more difficult. And if you finish with the number 1 overall seed, you're probably looking at a Diaz against the Braves, Mets, or Padres, right? That kind of be the 4 or 5 matchup. So yeah, I mean, if the Padres get Juan Soto, yeah, sure, it's a little bit concerning because you don't get Juan Soto if you're the Dodgers. Doesn't make the Padres better than the Dodgers. That I'm not so sure. But it definitely closes the gap a lot. I mean, because you have three guys in the top of the order. Assuming Tatis comes back healthy, I mean, we'll see. Um, and then that rotation is the real deal. With or without Mackenzie Gore, they have five guys there that are pretty good. So it closes the gap, but I don't think the Dodgers are necessarily concerned if Juan Soto goes there. I think they just want him on their own.
I wanted to ask that before we went to the Prince of Darkness, Juan, because I figured Juan would bring a little bit of gloom and doom with the Padres there. So go ahead, Juan.
Look, to me, here's one of the things that I want to ask you, Tocayo, because I don't think this is a reason that has been talked enough about why you go get Soto, right? You go get Soto because he's a great player. Underperformance. Like, I sit there and I think, if the Dodgers hadn't have gotten Freddie Freeman this year, with what you're getting out of Bellinger and what you're getting out of Muncy, the Dodgers lineup might have been in trouble this year. So is going after Soto an insurance? Because look, we're almost in August and Muncy is still struggling and Bellinger is what Bellinger is. I don't think, and yeah, maybe in the postseason these guys get hot, but can you really expect that? I mean, is that a viable reason to go get Soto?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think you can just expect that Max Muncy is going to kind of flip a switch and turn into last year's Max Muncy, right? I mean, I think the elbow thing is a real concern for everybody. I mean, I think he's hitting seventh today. When Chris Taylor comes back, is he going to be a platoon guy? These are all real possibilities when it comes to Max Muncy. I mean, Cody Bellinger is hitting 205. You know, he's running into some home runs, just positive. But like you said, this might just be the version of Cody Bellinger that the Dodgers are going to get for the next year, 2 years, however long he's under contract. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely insurance. He becomes insurance for Trey Turner, right? Like if Trey Turner leaves this offseason, which is very possible, then you have another guy who you could pay, some big cash in Juan Soto, or you just trade for Juan Soto and you re-sign Trey Turner, and then you have Juan Soto, Trey Turner, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman for the next 3 years, 2 years, or whatever it is. I mean, I think 3 postseasons of those 4, the top of your order, with Will Smith hitting 5th, I think you put yourself in a pretty good shot, pretty good position to win at least one World Series, which is all. I feel like people kind of take for granted how hard it is to win a World Series. I mean, if you trade 7 prospects and one of them turns out to be a 7-time All-Star, but you win 1 or 2 World Series, like, I mean, I think anybody would sign up for that, right? Like, I just don't know what the downside is. It's not a guarantee. So if you don't win a World Series, then that kind of hurts. But you put yourself in the best situation possible to try and win a World Series. So yeah, to your point, there's definitely some insurance by getting a guy like Juan Soto. It's kind of like you kind of need 1 or 2 guys to get hot in the postseason, but you also just need your stars to show up. And if you have 4 stars in one lineup, you have a better chance to win a World Series than even if you have 3. I mean, last year we saw Trey Turner didn't hit in the postseason. Corey Seager didn't have his 2020 run. You basically relied on Chris Taylor for 2 games and Cody Bellinger to come through. If Cody Bellinger doesn't hit in the postseason, they probably get swept against the Braves. So there's always insurance. You can never have too many good players. I feel like that's why it's not a need to get Juan Soto. I mean, you can make an argument. You can get a JD Martinez or whatever it may be, kind of right-handed bat that you need. But if you want to make a splash and make a significant difference in the postseason, you go after a superstar player, and that's exactly what Juan Soto is.
And I agree with Alonso in the sense of I'm not opposed to trading prospects, right? I mean, you have to do it. In my sense, do the Dodgers need to go ahead and spend those prospects on Soto? Could they use those prospects to get other needs? I think is the question right now that they're really struggling with. So that being said, if they don't go after Soto because they don't need Soto, what is it that the Dodgers need?
I think that's like the $1 million question. I mean, if you look at the roster, they don't really need much, right? Like it's a very well built roster. Their hope is that they have Dustin May back here in the next 3 weeks. Chris Taylor should be kind of coming back. Gradual, I think, is throwing a bullpen today, so that's positive. Blake Trinan, I think they're hoping he comes back, and kind of we'll wait to see what happens with him. I mean, it's a pretty significant injury that he's trying to bounce back from. They're hoping for late August. They're not going to push him, obviously, because there's no need. I mean, like I said, the division is probably already wrapped up, so they're going to take their time with him. They're hoping Walker Buehler comes back. If he can even if he can give you 3 innings, 4 innings, kind of one of those like de facto opener roles in the last month or into the postseason, they'll definitely take that. So if all their pitching pieces come back, I think they feel very good about where they are in terms of the pitching staff. Now you run the risk that they don't come back. And all 4 of them, the Buehler, May is probably the one that's like kind of on the way past all the rehab stuff. Now he's just kind of building up strength. But, Trinan, Canely, Buehler, I mean, there's a realistic chance that they don't come back, coming back. I mean, not because they're severely hurt, but when you're coming back from an injury, you don't really know how you're going to bounce back, how you're going to recover if you have a setback. The schedule starts working against you a little bit. So if they get all those pieces back, maybe a right-handed bat off the bench, but that's not a significant move to kind of like, that's just to add more depth and more insurance. So I think that's why they're kind of debating going for a guy like Juan Soto. If you're not trying to improve on the margins, you might as well just go all out and try and improve significantly. I mean, I don't know if a right-handed bat off the bench makes them that much better. I mean, I think, Hansler's kind of starting to break out of it a little bit. Justin Turner is hitting the ball much better. You still have Chris Taylor. So, Miguel Vargas, if you don't trade him, he's still going to be around and he can kind of, he can produce something in September. So it's tough, man. I mean, this is a really good roster. It's a really good team. So now you just have to decide whether you want to trade for a reliever, and that's kind of your big move, and just wait and hope that all of these guys come back, or do you want to make a splash and make your team, that much better?
So I get this question a lot. And the concern is, and I think it's because we're all traumatized from this. We've seen it. The Dodgers are great in the regular season, and then the postseason is a completely different animal because this team is built for the regular season. And then when it comes to a sprint, you sit there and you look at the pitching staff the Braves have in a short series, the pitching staff that the Mets have in a short series, and then you look at the Dodgers pitching staff. I still think there's question marks on Gonsolin. There's always question marks on Kershaw because of his health. And then I agree with you. I don't think you can depend on Buehler coming back. And so what you got is Julio. Really. So because of that, do you use these assets to try? Is there an elite starter out there that you could get right now that would make a difference in the postseason? Because if you look at it right now, Juan, all these prospects are all blocked. Like, how are they going to get up? We had Michael Bush on the show, and I told the poor guy, I was like, every time the Dodgers sign on somebody, you must just be cursing at the sky, just going, I'm never going to get a chance to come up.
Right. Yeah, and that's I think that's the biggest problem, probably, right? Like, Max Scherzer's not there. You can't go and trade for Max Scherzer this year. Like, that caliber of pitcher is not available this year. And now, kind of with the expanded playoffs, there's some teams that are like, I don't know. Like, I think the Marlins are, Pablo Lopez is kind of being brought up, and they're 4 games out of the wild card spot. So it's like they might just decide, we don't really have to trade him. I mean, he's under team control to 2024. And is Pablo Lopez going to make you, is he going to be your game 1 starter in the postseason? Probably not. I mean, he's a really good pitcher, but, he's not an ace caliber guy. Luis Castillo is probably the kind of the biggest one of those pieces. And Cincinnati might decide just to not trade him. I mean, he's still under team control for a little bit. And even him, I mean, he's never necessarily pitched in those spots. So you don't know exactly what type of postseason pitcher he is. I know a lot of teams were impressed with what he did at Yankee Stadium, probably, I think, a week or 2 ago. And if I had to predict, and this is not any insider info, I think that's where he ends up. I think probably one of the New York teams probably, pays up that price for him. I don't think the Dodgers will, but even then, I don't know if you feel that comfortable having Luis Castillo against Max Scherzer or Jacob deGrom in a game 1. So there's not many options out there, and I think that's kind of the biggest issue. So the Dodgers are trying to. I think their hope is, and kind of their thinking behind it is we just have a bunch of really good pitchers, we can kind of piece things together. You get Dustin May back and you get Walker Buehler back, Trinan. I mean, these three guys are like top of the line guys. But to your point, if someone gets hurt, we're starting to see him crack a little bit here. We'll see. Kind of Coors Field, that's kind of a crapshoot, so we'll excuse him for that. But having that innings cap and kind of that innings surpassing your innings limit from your whole career, I mean that's a real thing. I mean, we saw it a little bit with Julio at the second half of the year last year. So that's real. Clayton obviously has this injury history. They're gonna manage him pretty well here in the next couple of months. So it's interesting, man. I mean, there's like I said, there's no Max Scherzer out there, and that's kind of the problem that the Dodgers are running into.
So before I hand it over to Alonso, I just want to ask you this. Am I wrong in the sense that I keep telling people that when the Dodgers trade these prospects, it's a different value? I feel like their farm system is so good that when they trade prospects, they're paying a higher price than other teams. So when we hear teams get, like, let's say if they get Luis Castillo and we see what they got in return, we're going to be like, that's what they got for Luis Castillo, but meanwhile for the Dodgers, they wanted this?
Yeah, I think the one thing with prospects is, I mean, I covered Tampa Bay for 4 years and kind of build on prospects. I think just being familiar with prospects kind of make a lot of people think that they're better than what they probably are, or how much other teams value those type of prospects. Not to say that the Dodgers don't have a good farm system. They do. I mean, you look up and down, it's a really good system. But I think people just kind of, prospects are kind of like your baby, right? Like you see them get drafted or signed internationally, and then you see them go from high A to double A to triple A, and you're like, oh my, this is the next best thing. I mean, last year we saw it with Gray and Ruiz. I mean, people were like, no, don't trade them for Trey Turner, Max Scherzer. And I was like, why not? Right? Yeah. Like, you're getting two all-star pitchers. You get a future Hall of Famer and a guy who's one of the best shortstops in the game. So I think that there's also the sentimental kind of value that prospects have that maybe even some big league players don't have, which is kind of bizarre to think. It's kind of like the backup quarterback syndrome. Like, everyone thinks the backup quarterback is always better than the starting quarterback. Yeah. So it's an interesting dynamic. Some guys pan out, some guys don't. That's just kind of the reality of having all these prospects. And I mean, I think Gavin Stone is a guy this year. Like last year, no one had really heard of him, and then this year he's like he's probably the best pitcher in the organization this year. So that speaks to the Dodgers and how they develop players. Which makes them more likely to ship away, Bobby Miller if that becomes available, because they feel like they can generate another Bobby Miller per se. There
you go, Alonso. He's convinced me. Just go all out for Soto. What's the point?
Well, I mean, the thing is I've been trying to tell him, right?
You have to, man. He's so good.
I mean, I subscribe to the idea that I don't think the Dodgers need that guy, right? But at the same time, I don't remember who wrote the article a couple days ago. Like, if the Dodgers don't go out and get Juan Soto, it's kind of like missing out on Mike Trout. The thing about Mike Trout,
it was Dylan. It was probably Dylan, and Dylan's probably getting pelted right now, right? Right?
Yeah, right? He's getting shit on Twitter right now. He sounds like Dylan.
When you see Dylan in the press box, do you just go on the opposite side because you just don't want to get the heat that he's going to get?
The bad juju.
He brings in some pretty good heat, but he's a great guy, contrary to the belief on Twitter.
Yeah.
No, we've had him on, and he's a great dude. I just feel like he may or may not. I don't think he chooses violence, but I definitely think he just calls it like he sees it, and people don't like that.
That's true. They don't.
Again, for me, like you said, prospects are a crapshoot, right? Like Miguel Vargas. Love Miguel Vargas as a person. Obviously, he's killing it as a player, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to transcend to the big leagues level, right? Granted, he could be, right? But at the same time, if you're asking me, hey, what do you want for Juan Soto? And the first guy you say is Miguel Vargas, okay, I'm listening because it doesn't affect your major league roster. And I think that's the thing that like kind of gets lost in the fray is it doesn't mess your current plans up, and that's how Friedman operates. So I just wanted to point that out because, like you said, every organization values pitching, prospects, whatever, completely different. And if there's a farm that can absolutely afford getting rid of top 5 guys, top 10 guys, top 20 guys even, it's the Dodgers. And Juan Soto doesn't come around every day either. Like there's,
does it concern either one of you that they're playing these guys in multiple positions down in the minor leagues because they're trying to find a way to bring them up?
Yeah, I mean, Miguel Vargas is kind of interesting. I mean, you just want the bat in there, right? Like,
yeah.
You don't really care where he plays defensively. You just need his bat in there somewhere. And, if you look at first base, like he's not playing first base for the Dodgers anymore because Freddie Freeman's going to be here for the next 6 years. You look at third base and like Justin Turner's starting to hit again. So he might not be able to play third. And you still have Muncy, you have Taylor, you have all these guys. So it's like, all right, let's left field. And then they go and get Trace Thompson, and now Trace Thompson's hitting again. So it's like, they're just trying to figure out a way how they can get him up to the big league roster. And kind of like one more thing with the Soto stuff. It's just like, it depends. The hard part for teams will be giving up a major leaguer. Which I think that's why a lot of people think the Padres might be the favorites, because they're a little bit more willing to give up Gore and Abrams, for example. I mean, I don't know if that's the package, but that's from everything I read. Because Mackenzie Gore is like their 6th starter right now, right? Like, I mean, he's kind of their future, but if they're trying to win now, they're trying to make a splash, they can kind of afford to get rid of him and still have a really good rotation. CJ Abrams is a shortstop. Guess who they have a shortstop for the next 13 years, right? Like, so they're a little bit more willing to deal with those guys. I don't know how willing the Dodgers are to be able to be like, okay, we'll give you Dustin May or we'll give you Gavin Lux. Because those guys, like Gavin Lux, could realistically, I mean, we'll see how this all plays out, but he could be the starting shortstop next season.
Oh, please don't say that. Please don't say that. I mean, I love his bat, man, but I mean, you see the games every day, Juan.
Right.
You know what an adventure it is sometimes.
I don't make the decision, man. I'm just saying it's possible. I mean, if Trey Turner walks, which, like, again, it's a very real possibility, and you don't want to go spend X amount of money on a shortstop, you might just have to say, okay, let's see what we have, with a 25-year-old Gavin Lux. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but if the Dodgers are thinking that might be a possibility, I don't know how they would be like, okay, let me include our next year's shortstop into a potential deal for a left fielder that we don't necessarily need.
Right.
So that becomes kind of the like I said, there's so many moving parts to like negotiating a deal for Soto because the asking price is so high. Now, if the Nats are like, give us 7 of your prospects and you can keep your major league team intact, I mean, at that point, you just got to think, all right, is this worth it?
Yeah.
If I was GM, yes, but I'm not GM. And Freeman still has a little bit of Tampa Bay in him. And prospects matter, man. I mean, organizational depth, I think that's what we saw with San Diego last year. I mean, guys started getting hurt, and they had a great 26-man roster, and then the 27 to 40 were not so great, and then the team just collapsed after that. So they also don't have the same pockets that the Dodgers have, and they can kind of mask some weaknesses in other ways. But it's going to be pretty interesting how things work out. If I was GM, I'm trading for Juan Soto, if I can. Just because, dude, he just doesn't become available often. I mean, you're talking about Mookie Betts. Like, that's like if I would have told you in 2020, like, no, don't trade Verdugo and Downs for Mookie Betts. I mean, I would have been insane for me to say that. I mean, he got you a World Series. Like, he's one of the best players in baseball. I don't think any Dodger fan is thinking, oh, I wonder how Alex Verdugo is doing. Like, nobody cares because you have Mookie Betts. So if you get Juan Soto, even if Diego Cartaya becomes this guy, no one's going to be thinking, oh, I wonder what Diego Cartaya is up to this year.
If you take Corbin, will that lower the price on maybe trading a major leaguer or a prospect?
Yeah, that definitely lowers the price. Now, you want 3 years of what we saw yesterday?
No, you just cut him, right? And you give him the Bobby Bonilla contract.
Cut him. I mean, I guess the Dodgers can kind of afford anything. But that puts more pressure on your future, in my opinion, if you're the Dodgers, because it's financial. It's financial now. Like, you can't go out and spend, as opposed to if you give away a couple prospects, and then I think people forget. Like, in 3 years, you're gonna have 3 first-round picks. You're gonna have a whole draft. You're going to have 3 international signing periods. I mean, you can get new guys. It's not like baseball players are just going to stop existing, right? Like, if there's one organization that that has proven that they can develop from within, it's probably the Dodgers. So, if fans are upset if they trade 7 prospects, which I don't know if that would happen or not, just remember baseball players will continue to get signed.
I love that.
Well, and I mean, and one thing too to take into account, and a guy that I think the Dodgers will be in on, Joe Musgrove may hit the free agent market as soon as at the end of this season, right? So there's plenty of starting pitching that's going to probably be available at the end of the season, just not right now. Because I too think that Luis Castillo is going to be a Yankee. I said that on our on our live episode the other day that Luis Castillo is going to be a Yankee as of the trade deadline. So I'm not even, and even of that, I don't think the Dodgers want him because to your point that you said earlier, Juan, I don't think it's still, I don't want to say it's suspect because he's a major league pitcher, but you don't know what you're going to get out of him for what you need him for, which is the postseason, right? So what I wanted to ask you is this, and then we'll set you loose. Relief pitching is what I think the Dodgers need. If there is a weakness, it's probably relief pitching. The bummer is this market is trash. There is not a very good, it's not a good relief market if you're out there shopping for that. You know, the name that everyone keeps throwing out there is Daniel Bard, 37-year-old Daniel Bard from the Rockies. Is kind of like the head class as far as, you know, guys you can trade for. I was just kind of curious, have you heard anything on that front, or if there's anyone that even sounds appealing that the Dodgers may make a move for come the deadline?
Yeah, to the Daniel Bard point, I mean, I'll believe it when I see it if the Rockies trade with the Dodgers.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So I don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong.
No chance.
There's new management there, I guess, but the owner, I mean, it's like...
There it is. It's confirmed. Daniel Bard to the Cardinals for a bag of donuts.
And $50 million.
I don't know if that's going to happen. You know, David Bednar's out there. I mean, there's a couple guys out there. But, like, yeah, to your point, there's no guy. I mean, I think the Dodgers' best chance is if they get some of their guys back. And, you know, you add Blake Trinan, you know, Bruce Graterol is a pretty good pitcher. The issue becomes, like, you need high-leverage guys in the postseason. I mean, the fifth, sixth reliever in the postseason don't really matter, right? Like, they're kind of irrelevant to some degree. So you need your top guys. And in their minds, you know, if you get Blake Trinan back, if you get Bruce Graterol back, if Dustin May can give you 2 or 3 innings kind of in that Julio 2020 role, or I guess 2021 role too. But if you can add him in, right, if you can add him in there, Tommy, I don't know if I mentioned Tommy Kahnle already, but Bruce Graterol, I mean, they have 4 or 5 guys down in Arizona now, I guess, like Danny Duffy. Like, is he gonna make an impact at some point this year?
Danny Duffy's not real, right?
Okay, so
he's like Kendrick Nunn, right? Is that who Danny Duffy is?
I've seen him a couple of times, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen him throw a baseball since he got acquired last July. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, they have guys coming up, and you know, guys who are Hansel Robles. Like, is he gonna be? Can they fix him? I mean, I think we forget Evan Phillips. They got Evan Phillips in August last year after he got DFA'd by the Rays, and now he's probably their best reliever this year. So there could be one of those weird waiver claims that, like, the Dodgers see something and they try and fix the guy, and it works. So that could be an option too. And there's one thing Andrew Friedman doesn't do historically, and that's trade significant prospects for a reliever. And I have to kind of agree with him. I just don't think it's worth getting a reliever for 2 months and trading, you know, Miguel Vargas, right? Because that's teams know that you need a reliever, and so the price goes significantly up. So I don't know if that's necessarily worth it. Like, I'll trade Miguel Vargas for some other people, but not for a reliever. So I think their best bet is just to wait out and see if their guys come back. It's a risk. But they have to feel pretty confident that it's gonna happen. If not, they'll be on the phones trying to trade for one of these guys.
Juan Toribio, Dodgers beat reporter for MLB.com. If you ever see him in public, sock check him because he wears no show socks on the reg, and I know he knows what a sock check is after living in LA.
Only when I have a blister.
I like how only it's when you only have a blister.
Yeah, no. Dude, socks aren't meant to be shown. I mean, If they were meant to be shown, they would be much nicer.
The greater Los Angeles area would like to have a word with Juan Toribio. I mean, you're talking about the homie Dylan Hernandez getting
It's
heat.
a Florida thing for sure. It's a Florida thing.
Juan Toribio is about to get sock checked everywhere he goes. He's going to walk into a smart and easy sock check.
Hey, you look good after Gavin Lux dunked on you, though. You recovered nicely.
Dude, he knows he can guard me. He knows.
That's Juan Toribio. If you're not following him like I am, go follow him. Super easy to find him at Juan Toribio, friend of the Carne Asada. We always appreciate your time, man, and let's do this again soon.
For sure, man. Enjoy the next couple of days.
It's gonna be wild, and you're gonna be busy. So those are all good things.
For sure. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And stopping by the Carne Asada for a few moments to talk that trade chatter because it's the season for trades. He covers the Dodgers for the Athletic, and now a friend of the Carne Asada, Fabian Ardaya. Fabian, ¿cómo estás?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing good. We're all obviously seeing the trade saga unfold. That's happening right now with all the rumors. So just wanted to touch base with you on a couple of them. There, like we talked about with another insider a few minutes ago. There's some rando named Juan Soto that I guess is like on the market or something. Wanted to see what you're hearing on that since your ears to the ground, and if there's any truth that the Padres are in deep on that.
I mean, it's not surprising at all that the Padres are heavily involved in that. I mean, obviously, he's the type of guy that fits exactly what they're trying to do, and AJ Preller might be the general manager who's aggressive enough to pull this off. Dodgers are still obviously in the mix. They're going to be listening. They're always going to be sort of involved when it comes to that type of player, just because those types of players aren't available for trade very often, let alone someone as good and as young as Juan Soto. I'm not sure how aggressive they're going to be to push to be the guys to land them during this deadline period. Obviously, if the right thing comes up, they'll do it, but they've traded a lot in the last few years. I think they've sort of acknowledged that, and also they acknowledge that their system, while pretty deep, they still like to keep it deep because they understand that they have some payroll commitments that are going to be sort of changing the next couple of years. They only have 4 guaranteed contracts on the books for beyond 2023, but they still have guys that they might try to extend, whether it be trying to retain Trey Turner in the winter or trying to sort of figure out what you're doing with some of your starters like Julio Urias, Walker Buehler, guys like that you still have to try to plan for the future with those guys as well.
Easy enough. And with that too, there's another guy. I don't think the Dodgers would trade for him, but apparently they're listening on Shohei Ohtani. What have you heard on that front?
The Dodgers would definitely be interested. I would not be surprised at all if they're going to be one of the teams. If they have been one of the teams that have called, I think that they're pretty sure I'm pretty sure that they have called in on Shohei Ohtani. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be optimistic in landing him either. Just considering, obviously, some of the same things that are the hangups for Soto. It's going to be a similar probably price, just because he does both pitches and hits. He's a year and a half from free agency. The Dodgers might be just aggressive and try to pursue him then, because I know they tried to make a push for him both when he first came over to the United States, but also before that they almost landed him as a pitcher out of high school. So they obviously have a lot of interest in him, but I think there's enough reason for the Dodgers to have skepticism that Artie Moreno, the Angels owner, would approve a trade to the Dodgers, just considering we've seen in the past him veto that kind of trade. I think there's only been one swap of major league players between these two teams since Moreno bought the team, and that was Howie Kendrick for Andrew Heaney back in 2014.
Well, and that's actually, before I send it over to Alicia, the question I had is how do you gauge the value of a Shohei Ohtani? Because obviously, even on the free agent market, I was reading some stuff too. That's a dude that's going to command a lot of money because, like you said, he does both. He's a two-way player. So out of the two, obviously Juan Soto going to be a haul no matter what. Shohei Ohtani obviously going to be a haul. But how do you kind of gauge the value as far as that goes as a fair trade? I guess I should put it.
I think part of it's also you have to sort of leverage in like how likely you are to extend the guy once you do trade for the guy. Because I don't know if Juan Soto is going to be someone that there's going to be a window to try to sign an extension with him. I don't know if Shohei Ohtani is going to grant that either, for the record. But just sort of gauging what you're going to value them long term. If you're going to be able to extend them, that's probably going to be part of the value as well. But yeah, I mean, valuing Shohei Ohtani, I have no idea. Like I covered the Angels before covering the Dodgers, and even then, I was going into like what even an arbitration hearing would look like for him. The Angels sort of avoided that by signing him to a 2-year extent, sort of buyout. of some of his arbitration years a couple years back. But obviously this winter, he's going to be going into arbitration for the first time. I have no idea how they're going to sort of value that because that's based on precedent, and there is no precedent for this guy. So he's probably going to be commanding a pretty big salary in free agency or an extension. I don't know how they're going to sort of calculate that, but obviously the value is immense. He led all of baseball in wins above replacement last year because he does both. He might do that again. Probably will do that again this year. So there's just so much value in a guy like that, even if you're factoring in health, the fact that he's 5 years older than Juan Soto. Like, he's probably going to command something similar just because of all the different things he can provide.
Yeah, easy enough. Felicia, go ahead.
Because Ohtani is a rock star, right? Well, in my opinion. So I want to kind of follow up on the Ohtani question. I was hearing yesterday that, yes, the Dodgers would be interested, and you confirmed that today. But something I hadn't thought about, is Ohtani going to be able to sustain the pitching? So if you're going to pay that amount, trade the farm away, whatever, to get an Ohtani, if he stops pitching, say in 5 years, then you have a DH, right? I mean, I hadn't thought about that. Does anybody talk about that he could just stop pitching because he is the only one that's doing both?
I think it matters a lot to him to keep doing both, especially now that he kind of has proof of concept last year, obviously being able to do it for a full season. This season, his pitching's gotten even better. He's probably having a better season on the mound this season than he did last year, although the bat is maybe taking a slight step back. So I think he's going to stay on the mound. I think the fact that pitching for a team or playing for a team that maybe can have the resources to keep giving him the extra day between the starts, he's smart with how they utilize him. Dodgers already kind of do that with giving guys an extra day here and there pretty often. So I feel like that's going to be part of the factor. And I think the fact that he pitches obviously is very, very much tied to his value. And I don't see him moving to an outfield position at any point because it's been so long since he's played that position. So I think he's going to keep playing both.
Fabian, I like that answer. Again, I'm an Ohtani fan. There are a lot of Dodger fans that hate the Angels, but I'm not one of them. This morning on MLB.com, they had a list of players likely to be traded. And Luis Castillo is on that list. And the guys and I, we have kind of leaned towards that's not going to happen. But what do you think, in your opinion? Is it still possible? Because I put it out there that I'd rather have more pitching than Soto.
Well, I think Luis Castillo is obviously still someone that they would probably have interest in. They still have a lot of interest in a lot of different starters, just because that's probably the easiest way to upgrade your team. Obviously, you can never have enough arms. I'm not sure how aggressive they're going to be compared to some of the other teams that really need starting rotation help, like the Yankees, for example. But I mean, the sort of valuing Castillo versus Soto, you're going to want Juan Soto every single time, just because he is a guy not just for this postseason run, but next three, and he's a Hall of Fame type of bat who's going to be on everyday part of your lineup as opposed to a guy every fifth day. But the Dodgers obviously have had a good track record developing their own pitching, a lot of homegrown pitching, a lot of even guys coming in, sort of fifth, sixth starters still producing, and they have the best rotation ERA in baseball right now.
Yeah, MLB had the teams that would go for Luis Castillo. They had the Dodgers at the first place team, and then the Blue Jays, and then the Yankees. So I'm still holding out for pitching. Also, this is kind of fun talking about trade, right? Like the trade deadline is looming, trade rumors, predictions. But is baseball doing enough? I mean, I feel like it's for the diehard baseball fans, not the casual fans, not the way the NFL does their trading. You know what I mean? So is MLB doing enough to be relevant, stay relevant? I mean, we're excited, but do you get what I'm saying? Is there more they could do?
I mean, I think having possibility of having Juan Soto and Shohei Ohtani on the market certainly helps sort of stir the conversation in that direction. I think you'll see a little bit more of that sort of in the day or so leading up to the deadline as opposed to 3 or 4 days in advance, just because there's more activity then. I think a lot of this trade market has been slower to develop just because of when they move the draft. The draft is sort of lined up where you sort of have that right before the All-Star break. Then you have the All-Star break. You're trying to sign all these draft picks while you're trying to navigate trades. They got a little bit of a later start this year and last year as opposed to in previous years in terms of getting those conversations going, which is, I think, part of the reason why there hasn't been too many moves just yet.
Just yet. I'm excited. Are you excited, Juan?
Very much so. I love mind-numbing trade talk. Like, everything gets reported, and it's like there's no truth to it, but we're going to throw it on Twitter. Fabian, look, the Dodgers are World Series or bust, right? And I think the Dodgers are in a really tough position right now because they have so many guys that technically could be coming back from injury and could be helping this team. And you're going to have to make some roster decisions if these guys come back. But the other issue that you're going to look at is how reliable are these guys that are going to be coming back? Like, I don't think you can expect anything from Buehler. Like, I know they're saying September for Buehler, but I'm not confident of it. Heaney, can you keep that guy healthy? So I don't know if they're going to make a move. So if they don't make a move, they're making the playoffs, but the fact that they don't make a move, is that going to show up in the playoffs? Is that when people are going to go, because the Dodgers didn't make a move at the trade deadline, this is where it's hurting them because you're going to be facing the Mets, you're going to be facing the Braves?
I think it depends on, obviously, how it all plays out. I think it depends on what sort of winds up being the links that sort of break for the Dodgers in the postseason if they don't win. I think that's sort of always the case. Last year, it was really easy to point to, okay, they didn't have nearly enough bench depth. They do at this point. It appears so, at least, where you sort of have Trace Thompson, Jake Lamb. That's going to get stronger as Chris Taylor comes back, as Edwin Rios comes back. That looks like it's a position that's sort of shored up as opposed to last year. Bullpen, you're sort of looking at, okay, the bullpen right now, they have a lot of guys in there that probably would not be part of an October bullpen. And like you mentioned, there's guys that are going to be coming back. You're looking at Blake Trinan possibly coming back. Tom McKinley possibly coming back. Same thing with Danny Duffy and Victor Gonzalez possibly coming back. Brusdar Graterol will probably be back at that point. But obviously, with a shoulder issue, you probably have to be cautious with how you bring him back. And then you're looking at, like you mentioned, Walker Buehler, Dustin May. Those are both guys that they're probably going to pencil in to their October rotation. But they obviously, that's not a guarantee that either of those guys is going to be ready to go. Dustin May will probably be back a lot sooner than Buehler just because he's already a couple rehab starts away probably from being activated. He looks like the stuff has bounced back really well. But Walker Buehler obviously just started playing catch. He's not a guarantee to be a starter in October, although he has said he's open to, if he needs to be, being a reliever in October. And that all of a sudden looks a little bit different. Andrew Heaney, like you mentioned, obviously they're going to have to manage that a lot. He's probably going to pitch count for most of the rest of the season. Wonder if he's a guy that maybe they push into the bullpen come October as well. Maybe they're flexible with Dustin May, how they use him, starter, reliever, hybrid type role. I think they're just counting on enough of these arms being back healthy, even if it's okay, if it's a group of, say, 6 or 7 guys, if 2 or 3 of those guys can be close to what they want, I think they feel confident that. I do think that they'll probably add a reliever or so at the deadline just because they feel like they can maybe tweak 1 or 2 things, find something like they did with Evan Phillips last year in August off waivers. So they probably feel like they can get another guy like that way. But other than that, like that's going to be, like you mentioned, a lot of relying on guys to come back healthy. And you're right, like there's a lot of uncertainty there. But they also, some of those guys, if they do hit, and that's a lot of guys that you probably have a lot of faith in if they do show that they're healthy.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you to be not so objective and put on your GM hat. Would you go for Soto over Ohtani? Which one of those 2 guys would you go through? Only keeping this in mind. You mentioned before that the Dodgers really love having depth, but a lot of these guys down there are blocked right now. You've made a lot of, they got Miguel Vargas, they got Michael Busch over there playing outfield because they desperately want to get their bat in the lineup. Defensively, I don't know if that's going to work. So because these guys are blocked, would you go for Soto because you will have him for 3 postseasons? Or would you go with Ohtani because that's an elite starter that you can depend on in the playoff run?
I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Obviously, like you mentioned, there's a lot of guys who are probably blocked in that system. There's a lot of guys who have to be added to the 40-man roster this winter, and there's obviously going to be a pile up there in terms of like spots. So that's going to be something, whether it's at the deadline or shortly after the season, they're more active in trade negotiations then. But I mean, they also need to make sure they can have enough young star level talents in their system that are, once they debut, they're going to be cheap, but still producing at a star level, because that's going to help balance out their payroll. That's the tricky part in trading for a Soto or an Ohtani, because you're probably going to have to give up a similar haul for both. So I think that's more of the calculus. But if you had to sort of choose between Shohei and Juan Soto, I mean, it's a different. I think they're fine either way. I think they're good with either scenario. But I mean, Juan Soto is looking at a guy like he's 23 years old. That's the part that comes back to. He's 23 years old, and even if the glove isn't quite there, even if the bat sort of stays where it's been at, like, that is a Hall of Fame bat that you just have in the middle of your order, and you have that lineup penciled in for at least the next 6 years, possibly. If you extend Juan Soto, you have the next 6 years at least, or next 5 years of him, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and that's a pretty good thing for the Dodgers to sort of build around going forward. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani, you're looking at a guy who is pretty special in his own right. The fact that you can do both, you can sort of have a similar dynamic in your lineup while also adding someone to your rotation. But you're also looking at a guy who is a year and a half away from free agency, is 5 years older, already has some serious health issues in his past with Tommy John surgery, knee surgery, ankle surgery back when he was in Japan. Those are all different things you probably have to factor into a Ohtani trade that you don't really have to with Soto yet.
All right, so before I hand it over to Alonso, I just want to know, have you dunked on your colleague, Juan Toribio? Because he talks up his basketball game. Is he as good as he says he is?
I don't know. I haven't been on the court with him yet, but we know he likes to talk about it, yes.
Go ahead, Alonso.
I like the shade right there from Fabian. Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic joining us here for a few more moments. If you were to, keeping your GM cap on with the starting pitching situation, because I agree, I think that the Dodgers are going to do the relief market thing, and I'll even go one further. Since this relief market's kind of suspect in the sense of what's available, I think it's going to be waiver wire deals. But if you were to kind of say, hey, this is where I know this pitcher is going to land, would you agree or would you disagree that Luis Castillo more than likely will not be a Dodger? Because I think he's going to be a Yankee.
I mean, I think you could say that about anyone. Just sort of, it's a safer bet to put them elsewhere just because the odds are so slim no matter what in any trade. But so yes, I think it'd be fair to say that the likelier scenario is that he will not be a Dodger. But I wouldn't be surprised if they swoop in, but yeah, I think the likelier scenario is that Luis Castillo is pitching elsewhere.
Well, the reason I say that too is because, as Juan alluded to when he started, when he began his line of questioning, we should say, it's mind-numbing trade talk, right? So you're just gonna throw stuff out there and kind of see what sticks. And I mean, here's the thing about Andrew Friedman: the guy works in he does back alley deals that no one knows about. So I wouldn't be surprised if they got either Soto or Ohtani, I at all. But at the same time, to your point, the likelihood that the Angels do a deal with the Dodgers too isn't very likely. So it's one of those things where at this point, anything is possible. But if we were to kind of look at the Dodgers as a whole, the thing that they need is pitching, right? So is it fair to say that more than likely that will be the kind of the attention of the Dodgers, assuming that a deal for a Juan Soto does not follow through?
I would say so. I think there's still a chance that maybe they add another bench bat somewhere, or maybe another right-handed bat, although Trace Thompson has performed pretty well in that role. But yeah, I think it's going to be mostly focused on the pitching just because, I mean, they understand as well as anyone that pitching is fragile and you can sort of never have enough arms to get you through, and especially in October.
Yeah, and I mainly wanted you to make that point so our listeners can understand, yeah, it's cool getting Juan Soto, but this team's already meant to get to the playoffs. You just need some small pieces to kind of tinker with to potentially get to the show. So, and the show is the World Series. It's World Series or bust. The Dodgers have made that clear. So I just wanted all of us to be on the same page, and also that we all want to see Juan Toribio allegedly ball and allegedly dunk on someone, because I don't believe him for a second.
Is there a 6 foot under league in LA? Because I'm sure that Toribio would kill in that league. Fabian, before we let you go, I need to ask you this because you mentioned it already. It's going to be a numbers crunch with the roster. You got Rios. You got Taylor going to be coming back. I know Zach McKinstry is probably going to be sent down, but there's still going to be an odd number there, right? So it's going to be Jake Lamb or Trace Thompson, right? That may may be getting cut, or is my math wrong here?
I mean, I think that's a possibility. I think you're sort of looking ahead, and that's probably going to be something that's going to be a tough decision. I think their way of sort of spending is probably going to be these things have a way of working themselves out. Guys get banged up, guys get nicked up, and I think they're already kind of slow playing a little bit. When Edwin Rios will return, it's probably be a longer rehab assignment, partially because obviously he hasn't had a lot of regular at bats the last couple of years between the pandemic year, between obviously shoulder surgery last season, and then obviously losing a couple of months now with the hamstring issue. So they want to give him everyday at bats, but also I think they want to wait to see how things sort of shake out and how the roster sort of unfolds. Like, guys can get hurt, guys can sort of move around. Trace Thompson was only acquired because Mookie Betts got hurt, and then all of a sudden it works out that Chris Taylor got hurt too, so he still got regular playing time then.
So how much longer before Max Muncy's performance becomes a major concern, and we're not going to see him in the lineup, and we'll see him on the bench?
I think it's a growing concern for sure. I think we're at the point where it's almost August, and the guy is still sort of in this sort of same rut. They talked about having a reset, obviously with his elbow, with him sort of having the rehab assignment in OKC, getting a chance to mentally reset. There obviously was the great day in Chicago when he first came back. He had a great game, and then it's sort of been more of the same ever since. And you're starting to see some real signs of him pressing mentally on the field, sort of throwing his bat, sort of stuff like that. I think that's stuff that obviously the Dodgers are mindful of. But they were also in a similar position last season with Cody Bellinger. So I think they've shown a lot of patience with guys like that. Bellinger obviously played a more premium position, was still playing great defense. Max Muncy's defense still grades out well, but obviously second and third base doesn't bring as much value as center field does. I think as the games start to matter a little bit more, come October, they're going to be a lot more diligent about how they match up there. But until then, I think they're in a position where they have enough leash to be able to let him play through this and hope that he figures it out, because there's going to be a few guys out there on the bench, out there via trade, who, if Max Muncy locks back into what he used to be, have that kind of upside in October that Muncy does.
Alicia, you got anything?
No, I'm liking what I'm hearing. Again, this is just fun to talk about. Thank you for hanging out with us, Fabian. Just because you have your eyes and ears and on all teams and all things baseball, are the Dodgers really now considered the evil empire? Because I reserve that for the Yankees, and I just resent that very much. We're sunshine. This is California.
I do think that people recognize, obviously, the spending by the Dodgers and sort of look at the Dodgers as sort of a model franchise in a way that other teams sort of view them. I think you sort of look at it with the amount of teams that have hired people who have worked under Andrew Friedman. You look at it with Steve Cohen when he bought the Mets, sort of wanting to be West Coast Dodgers, sort of using them by name. So I think you're sort of seeing that. I think teams are looking to emulate the type of consistent regular season success the Dodgers have. We'll see about the Yankees sort of keeping that evil empire. If they sort of re-sign Aaron Judge or trade for Juan Soto, then maybe obviously that will come back a little bit more. But obviously the Yankees are doing pretty darn well this year as well.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, well, I'm good. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Fabian Ardaya, if you're not following him, go follow him. It's super easy to find him at Fabian Ardaya. He covers the Dodgers for The Athletic, also an Arizona State homer. So when you watch his play-by-play, you will see that he is an Arizona State homer, because he will point out that their guy went to Arizona State. Fight on. But on that note, we will set you loose, Fabian. Thank you so much for the time, and hopefully we can do this again.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Nice.
Juan, how convinced are you now that they should go out and get Juan Soto?
Toribio, I'm not going to lie. Toribio really convinced me. Only just because, look, the way the Dodgers develop players, I get it. Yeah, you know what? We had this with Eric Karros. You remember when Eric Karros told us that the reason why the Dodgers didn't get Randy Johnson were because they were burned by Pedro? Yeah. That Pedro trade made them gun shy. So after that, the Dodgers did not want to trade away any of their prospects because they just didn't want to get burned again.
Yeah.
I don't think you have the problem with that problem with Andrew Friedman. I mean, up until this point, I think he's traded away the right prospects. There hasn't been one prospect that we're like, ooh, we got burned on that one. I mean, I like Alex Verdugo. I think Alex Verdugo is a great player. He's not Mookie Betts. Of those other guys that they traded, when they traded for Yu Darvish, all those big deals, we saw Josiah Gray and we saw Keibert. I'm okay with having Trey Turner instead of having Keibert and Josiah. So the fact that Toribio is just like, look, there's going to be other guys. The Dodgers will draft other guys, and the Dodgers will develop those guys. And I mean, we didn't mention it with Toribio, but that guy Gavin Stone right now I had never heard of Gavin Stone, and all of a sudden people are saying he's going to be better than Bobby Miller. So when Toribio says just trade them, and that's the thing, dude, you're going to have, at worst, you'll have Soto. I think the important thing is they have to win the World Series.
Right.
They have to go and win now because you just don't know. I mean, right now they're playing really well. The window could end next season. So go for now. Use the Rams mentality, right, Alicia? I mean, the Rams don't care about draft picks. The Rams trade them. They're giving them away like they're candy, and they go all in, and guess what? They won the Super Bowl. I think the Dodgers should do the same thing. I think the problem is, and I can't stress this enough, you need two people to tango. And if the Nationals don't want to agree to whatever the Dodgers are offering, I don't think you can blame the Dodgers. Because I've said this before, I feel it's a different price for the Dodgers whenever they're negotiating for a trade. So we still need the Nationals to say yes. I would go ahead and go for Soto, even though I would love to have a guy like Ohtani, because pitching-wise, we're going to need that in the postseason. Right. But Artie Moreno is never going to okay Ohtani coming over to the Dodgers. I mean, he changed the name of his team to Los Angeles. You think he's going to allow Ohtani to then go to the real Los Angeles team? The real team from Los Angeles? I mean, what do you think, Alicia?
I am all in. I needed to be convinced. And even listening to you guys talk about it, I guess it comes from a place of like, is it too much? And some of the comments we received on our live on Thursday were like, it's not fair if you're just stacking the team. I mean, we want to win a World Series. Mm-hmm. You've said it over and over, Juan. It is World Series or bust. If Juan Soto is that piece that could get us over the hump, and like you said, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't want to lose that window. So I'm all in. Let's do this. And I love that you brought up the Rams, because that is proof right there that formula works. I love that winning mentality. I love that you mentioned Freeman has these, backroom deals going all the time. I have faith in my Dodgers. I have faith in management. I have faith that they're going to do what's right to get us another chip. So
let me ask you this, Alicia. You said that it works. It works because they won the Super Bowl.
Right.
If the Rams suck in 5 years, you'll be okay with it because they won the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, and 5 years is not guaranteed. So I love the mentality of now. Let's do it now. Let's go all in now. I mean, tomorrow is not guaranteed. So this is still exciting. And Soto, and you can see the fans during the All-Star weekend, they're all in too. They love Soto. So it took me a minute, but I'm fine with it. And let's do this. Let's win now.
What do you think, Alonso?
I wanted to ask you guys real quick. Who did they trade for Yu Darvish?
What was his name? He was a good hitter, and they had talked about him, but he never had. What was his name?
Can any of you name?
He got traded to someone else already, I think.
Yeah, you're making my point for me, Juan.
Yeah.
The prospects, they're highly touted prospects, right?
Willie Calhoun.
There we go, Willie Calhoun.
You are a cheater. You are a cheater. There's no other way about it.
That was the name I was looking for, babyface. It was Willie Calhoun, who everyone thought he would, but nobody thought. To be fair, I never heard people talk about Willie Calhoun the way people talk about Cartaya.
No.
People talk about Miguel Vargas or.
But the point I'm making is this.
Yeah.
One of the prospects that was in that trade was the 69th overall prospect in all of baseball. All of baseball. That's a lot of prospects, right?
Yeah.
Ain't none of them in the show, son. So at the end of the day, if you go out and you if you want to be aggressive, you can be aggressive because Darvish was a rental.
Yeah.
Max Scherzer was a rental. Your boy Manny Machado, rental.
Yes.
And they gave up quite a bit for those three guys. And I mean, obviously, the one payoff out of those three guys was Trey Turner. Because you've had Trey Turner, you will have him now for 2 postseasons.
And the Dodgers still have the number 1 farm system after giving up all those guys.
So at the end of the day, Juan Toribio makes a great point. Your point of the Dodgers getting taxed is bullshit, Juan, and let me tell you why. Because everyone values prospects differently. Because the Orioles may want a Diego Cartaya, and they may value him higher, but at the same time, they won't because their number 1 catching prospect is already in the show. So everyone is going to value that stuff differently. So that's the one thing that Dodger fans need to just understand. The valuation that one GM may have or another team may have is completely different. Like, for instance, the Mets. The Mets want to be the East Coast Dodgers, right? Yeah. They want everyone. But the Nationals aren't going to trade Juan Soto to the Mets. Let's be 100% honest. That's the worst-case scenario. Will they trade him to the Yankees, though? Maybe. But it all depends on what the Yankees are willing to part with.
So you don't think that Benintendi trade kills the Yankees' interest in Soto?
No, because if the Yankees have the depth to go out there and make a deal happen. It's just a matter of if they want to, because like you said, it takes 2 to tango. So if the Yankees really want him, okay, give us your best offer and we'll tell you yay or nay. Or, hey, you need to throw in this, you need to throw in that, whatever the case may be. So I'm the way I look at it is if there's one team that's going to overpay for Juan Soto, it's going to be the Padres. Because A.J. Preller's on a hot seat. They have to figure something out to get over that hump because their hump is different than the Dodgers hump, right? The Dodgers hump is, hey, we just need to win the World Series again. The Padres hump is, we need to win a playoff series. Yeah. So Juan Soto,
they can celebrate in the gas lamp that they won a series.
Yeah. So again, that's the big difference as far as valuation goes. Because AJ Preller is on a hot seat. Let's call a spade a spade. He's on a hot seat. They spent a bunch of money and they've underperformed and been underwhelming. Is some of it his fault? No, because injuries, Tatis Jr., all that stuff, right? But if you can get a Juan Soto, why not go get a Juan Soto? I think they're also being heavy on Shohei because that's a guy that you want. I don't think to your point, I don't think Arden Moreno will trade Shohei to the Dodgers. No chance. No chance. But at this point, Shohei has made it clear he doesn't want to be there. He's made it clear kind of to anyone and everyone that'll listen with and without a translator, my man does not want to be there. So if whoever's gonna, and that's the other thing that I liked about Fabian. He made a point. The valuation that Shohei is going to bring to what Juan Soto is going to be, yeah, they're both going to be hauls, but they're going to be completely different valuations. So point being, long story short is, if I trust Andrew Friedman, and if Andrew Friedman thinks that Juan Soto is what the Dodgers need to get over the hump, hey, do it, Friedman. Like, go do it, whatever it's going to cost. Yeah, it's going to suck if we lose Miguel Vargas and Diego Cartaya, but there's also a logjam at all of those positions. And you go get, the Dominican Babe Ruth, hey, let's go. Roger.
Yeah, you know what? Roger, before I let you go, I just want to say this. I do feel bad for those poor Angel fans.
Yeah.
Because there was a deal, a hypothetical on MLB Network. It's not going to happen, but this hypothetical was the Dodgers get Shohei, and the Angels would get Tony Gonsolin, Bobby Miller, Diego Cartaya, and Gavin Lux. Now, that's a good deal for the Angels, but because of Artie Moreno and his pride, and he will bite off his nose to spite his face, he'll say no to that. Yeah. And I feel bad for Angel fan because you guys you're never going to be able to get out of that when you have people who put their ego before what's best for business.
Right.
Well done on the best for business line there, Hunter Hurst Helmsley. Go ahead, Rob.
I like how Juan says Angel fan.
Oh,
well, it's because
but I'm the asshole. I'm the asshole. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, the way I look at it is, I don't want to lose those prospects, just because, I think what Toribio said, like, they're kind of like our babies. Like, we see them, like, we want to see them grow and we want to see what they can become. But I was looking at an interesting post that MLB Network had. They had the top 5 contenders for Soto. So they have the Cardinals 1, Padres 2, Dodgers 3, Rangers 4, Mariners 5. Now, one thing I noticed there, and you will notice, is every time there's a big player on the market, Dodgers are always in it, right? The other teams are always different. Now, Cardinals, Padres, Rangers, those guys, they took a while to gather those prospects, right? Dodgers always have prospects. They always
Yeah.
have top prospects. So these teams that are in it now, next year they're not going to be on the next big player. The year after that they're not going because they're going to have to try and get more prospects. But one thing we always see, Dodgers will always have those top prospects. So if we lose those guys that we want to keep, Cartaya, Vargas, next year we'll have other guys. Gavin Stone, we're talking about Gavin Stone. We're going to have those guys. So the Dodgers will always replenish that system. And who was it that said parades over prospects, right?
Oh, yeah, I don't know, but let me just say this about if people are still reluctant about trading prospects. I know Babyface will know this name, Billy Ashley. So that's all I'm going to say there is if you know Billy Ashley, it's okay to trade prospects.
No, and here's the thing: prospects are just that, right? They're prospective talent.
Yes.
They're not even in the show yet. You don't know what they're like. You know what they're doing at the level they're currently at, but you don't know if that's going to transcend to that. There's a name that I know at least two of you will know, and no disrespect to him because he's a friend, but Bobby Jenks. Do you remember Bobby Jenks?
Yeah, the White Sox.
The White
Sox.
Bobby Jenks was supposed to be the next big heat thrower, flamethrower, all that stuff. I'm sorry, Bobby. I'm not trying to shit on you, my guy, but it didn't pan out, right? But he was a big time prospect forever. No one wanted to trade him, all that stuff. It happens, is what it is. Point is, Diego Cartaya might be lighting it up right now in, what is he, high A?
Yep.
Is it high A?
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to transcend to the major league level. And that's not a knock on Diego. That's just where he's at right now. He's also 20. But still, if you have the opportunity to go out and get a guy that can get you over the hump, which in this case is to win a World Series, go do it. Because at the end of the day, too, this pitching market is suspect. We talked about it with both those guys, right? I don't think Luis Castillo is the fix for the pitching needs that they need. And truthfully, there isn't a reliever out there that's really appealing, right? So there's going to be a lot of waiver wire deals. Knowing Andrew Friedman is going to go out and get some. Everyone talks about it on Twitter. They're going to go out and get some schmuck, some scrub, and then he's going to be the best thing that's ever happened.
How dare you talk about Pedro Baez that way? He's already in the organization. He will be pitching for the Dodgers.
First of all, you said the name, not me.
Let me ask you this real quick before we end the show.
Yeah.
There is a report, and I don't know if you guys have heard about this. I don't know if this is legitimate, but that the Nationals are thinking of doing one last offer to Soto, and if he declines it, he's being traded. If that's true, then I think this is getting dragged out until Tuesday.
Oh, there's no chance.
Have you guys heard that?
There's no
I've heard
chance
that.
that they do that.
I've heard that.
There's no chance that they do that because they would be dumb. But also, there's no chance that they trade him up until the deadline because they want to get all of the offers that they can
So
get.
this won't happen then. He won't drop until Tuesday then.
No, there's no chance unless they've gotten everyone's offer that they know that's in on the Juan Soto sweepstakes. But at the end of the day, they want to get the best offer that they can get for the guy. And again, I mean, you were talking about it too. I don't think they're going to add a Patrick Courtman to that deal because if anything, it kills what you're going to get back. So they want to get the best available offer from whoever it may be. And here's the thing. The Dodgers have done business with the Nationals.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's like this, weird, like, hey, we're not talking. You know that they're talking. Rizzo and Friedman talk. So it's just a matter of finding what the fit is. And it may not be the Dodgers, right? But that's how that stuff works. They go out and do what's best for business, as you said.
So the longer this goes, the better it is for the Dodgers, even though it may not happen.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't get traded, I think then the offseason, the Dodgers would probably be in the driver's seat, wouldn't they?
I feel like if he does not get moved on Tuesday, then the price goes down because it goes from 3 postseasons to 2 postseasons.
Yeah.
So that obviously, you take into account just like anything else. So I don't know if the Dodgers will necessarily be in the driver's seat at that point, but it helps everyone because the price goes down. So the Padres may not have to overpay then. They'll slightly overpay instead of a hard overpay like right now. Because that's the thing is, the Dodgers may have the best offer, but the Padres are going to be like, hey, we'll give you Mackenzie Gore. We'll give you, all these things to kind of up the ante to that. So it's just a matter of if the Nationals want to do that. And you know what? The Nationals hold all the cards right now. So that's the chip to fall. I am curious, though, as to where they end up. Because if Shohei is moved, I honestly, I'll be shocked if they trade Shohei. I will be shocked. Because Artie Moreno for sure doesn't want to let go of the Golden Goose. So I would be 1,000% shocked if Shohei moves. But also Shohei's going to be pissed the rest of the time. So what do you do?
Oh man, dude, could you imagine Shohei on this Dodger team?
Oh,
I mean, not only does it just lengthen the lineup, but having him pitch. So then you're going to go into to play. Does he automatically become the Dodgers ace right now?
no, I don't think so. The de facto ace is Kershaw, right? And
So
then
you would have Kershaw start game 1 of the playoffs.
100%, just out of respect, yeah.
Okay.
Same.
But also Kershaw's pitching out of his mind.
Yeah, he is. It's not a sympathy start.
No.
Like he
No, I mean he and thank you for clarifying that, Alicia. It's not a hey, it's because he's a legend. He's a legend, but he's pitching out of his mind right now, and then from
like,
there,
his own, right? Like,
yeah, and he's loose. That's why I said whatever he's doing, keep doing it, bro, because you're clearly pitching pissed, but you're not pissed. So whatever he's doing, keep doing it. But no, the de facto number one is Kershaw, and then it's kind of I would say either Tyler Anderson or Julio, or I'm sorry, Tony, and then Tyler Anderson or Julio. But if you get a Shohei, that's how many times have I said on this podcast that you need 3 starters to win a World Series?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I wouldn't mind having him. I just know that Artie isn't going to do it. He's not going to do it, even though it's best for his team.
No, and I mean, here's the thing, too. Tyler Anderson is making a case for that number 3, too, because he pitched out of his mind the other night in Colorado, and, you know, he told even Dave, when Dave came out, he did the John Lackey, the gosh darn.
And then got a double play, man. And then got a double play.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the main thing is obviously, as both those guys, Fabian and Toribio talked about, it's all a matter of getting these guys back and healthy, right? But there's a lot of question marks. But if you can up your squad by getting that, I mean, they want a right-handed bat, right? By the way, I have never understood why they want a right-handed bat.
Neither do I.
I never understood that, because they had one in AJ Pollock and they traded him away. But I understand he was injury prone too, right? But I never so I don't know if that's true or not. But if that is in fact true, I've personally never understood that. Maybe it's just because they're so left heavy. But be that as it may, Juan Soto's not a right-handed bat. Shohei Ohtani, not a right-handed bat. So I mean that's all I'm saying there is as you said, the mind-numbing trade rumors. They I feel like people just say whatever to stick, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is fun to think about what a lineup of, do you go Mookie Betts, Juan Soto, Trey Turner, Freddie Freeman? You're going to face those guys in the first inning.
Yeah.
That's a little scary.
Well, and I mean, and if you have that for 6 years, bro, I don't care how good your pitching is. Even the Padres pitching, they're not going to like that lineup. Well, before we said everyone lose, does anyone think Shohei gets traded? I'm sticking with no.
I'm sticking with no because I feel like that's all the Angels have going on right now. With Trout's injury. Literally everything rests on the stardom of he's going to put butts in the seats at Angel Stadium. Yeah. So,
Juan.
No, I honestly, I don't think it's either of them are going to happen. Soto, I'd be very surprised if Soto and Ohtani, but I could actually see, like Fabian said, just getting a reliever. But I also wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden on Tuesday, JD Martinez is a Dodger.
Yeah, that name's going around.
I would not be surprised at that, because I understand your point, Alonso. It's like, why do you need him? But at this point, could they just be looking at it as insurance? Because
they need a bench bat for sure.
I mean, is there going to be much of a market for JD Martinez? Like, could they get JD Martinez for, no disrespect, for a Willie Calhoun or one of the other, that 69 prospect that you mentioned that's not even in the league?
Nice.
No problem.
Roger?
Shohei getting traded? I don't think so. Angels would have to cancel all their promotions for the rest of the season. That's not going to happen.
I just don't see that move. Yeah, he's the Beatles. I mean, I said it to Karos, right? He's the Beatles.
Yeah.
You don't trade the Beatles, even though the Beatles are overrated. You don't trade the Beatles.
I mean, next year, if he's still on the team, then next trade season will probably happen. Not this year.
Yeah, like more it'll be more strategic next season for sure. But again,
But
it's
the
not
price goes down next year too.
Yeah, it does. No, it really does. I mean, because it goes from 2 postseasons to 1.
Yeah.
So that you look at it like a rental.
Yeah.
JD Martinez is an interesting name. I've been seeing that a lot too. The reason I find it interesting, my man doesn't play a bunch of positions. That's not really what the Dodgers' mantra is for the bench bats, right? And also, would JD Martinez be cool with being a bench bat?
I mean, DH. We got the DH now, so that's probably where we'd see him primarily.
Well, you already have a DH. His name is Justin Turner.
You know what? They're gonna.
he's hurt again.
Well, right. Well, but I mean,
Love
either.
JT, get better, JT.
But I mean, they already have options at the DH, is what I'm getting to. Jake
I
Lamb.
mean, but you see, it's not a constant DH. It's a
No.
rotating DH. So I think that's where you would fit in.
Well, I'm curious to see how it all pans out. And even to that, if you want to bet on any of that, if you go to betonline.ag
I see what you did there.
and use our promo code, which is BELIEVE50, you can bet on those futures for these trades. They presented the show. Huge thanks to them for presenting this week's episode of the podcast. And BetOnline are some great partners, so go check out their site, betonline.ag, and get in on the action. From your boys Alonso y Juan, Babyface Gimmick in the Sky, and Princess del Valle. Thank you guys for joining us. And who knows, maybe after you listen to this, Juan Soto's a Dodger. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. You never know, because with this front office, by the way, you don't even know. I didn't know Trey Turner was coming in that deal, and now Trey Turner's been a Dodger for a season and a half. So we'll see. But on that note, we'll wrap it up. See you guys down the road, and go Dodgers.